Welcome. I appreciate this was a slotted in training, so it wasn't actually planned. You know, I wasn't planned in the brochures, etc. So you'll see them differently. But welcome. And I think you guys have got an understanding of what I'm talking about, which is, thank you for coming back actually, ladies. I think you came back as well, yeah. What we're going to be talking about is procrastination and how, I don't even know whether I want to talk about it. No. How we decide whether we want to continue or do some actions, etc., or whether we do other things instead. The things that we don't think are that important. So it'll be quite fun, quite enjoyable. Do move forward if you want to, if it's not so clear at the back there, because I don't know whether it is. My name is Sukhi Wahiwala. What I'd like you to do, if it's okay, if anyone's got a pen and paper, it'll be really wonderful if you grab a pen and paper and just answer a few simple questions of, I appreciate there's a lot of speakers here, but what specifically are you here for, and what is your main objective? This actually helps quite a lot with the training, with your own focus, and it's also very important for part of the procrastination process, right? So when you get it out of the well. Please take a seat. Gents, please take a seat. So if you could just write down, kind of in your own thought process, of what is it that you're actually here for? And maybe if you've got your phone, tap it. That's okay as well. Or maybe not. The benefit of this is, I'll explain, I don't sort of hide this away from everybody. There's a focus to this, because if our brain is drifting, focusing on a million things at the same time, our chances of getting it to focus on a single thing reduces. Is that fair? So this is basically what we classify as a preempt. We open up the brain to say, what is it that I'm actually looking for? Now you're sitting in this training, obviously we're in the business show, so you've come to the business show for something specific. So maybe that's what you're going to write down there. I'm come here to progress my business. But the other element is that there isn't actually a progression in business without a progression in yourself. Is that fair? Yeah? So the other point would be is what's the objective? Something tangible. What am I going to take away from today? So could it be that I can actually take away my decision power, my ability to be able to turn around and make a laser-focused decision that actually serves myself, moves me forward, and I'm sure you'll notice by the end of today that we spend a lot of our energy jumping in and out of tasks, starting it, finishing it, starting it, finishing it. It doesn't make a difference fiscally, financially, wealthy or not wealthy. It could be in a social platform, social environment, at home, things you're supposed to do around the house, whether it's, if we all call this the carpenter effect. A carpenter's house table is usually wedged with a book. Because when they come home, they don't want to do the same. Does that make sense? So these are all layers of thought process and partial procrastinations. What I'm about to share with you is what I've shared on the TEDx platforms as well. So it's a very simple, straightforward 7-step process. But there is welcome, please join us as well. But there is a thought process to go through to get us there. Is that okay? So I'm going to speed up a little bit because of the fact that they always reduce our time. Every time, just to reduce it a little bit further. Would you like some water? Are you okay?
No,
you got some? Okay. So, what is the objective? How will I know that I've actually achieved what I set out to do? This is the kind of thing you want to be asking yourself. This trains the brain to decide to look for exactly what you're looking for. Does that make sense? So, there's a saying that says, I will always find whatever I am looking for. Yeah? So if I'm looking for it, I will end up finding it. It sounds very complicated, but very simple at the same time, and a bit evasive. But the reality is, it's just that simple. If you train your brain to listen to what you want to achieve, you will actually try to accidentally find it. So, being honest with yourself, you're not sharing this with anybody else, it's your own personal honesty. Do you want to move forward? Do you or do you not? It's your thought. And this doesn't mean financially, it could be emotionally, as I said, it could well be in a relationship. Husband, wife, partners, business. Sometimes we don't do things that we should be doing in business as well. Okay, so let's get on, because I'm going to end up running short. Has anybody ever been distracted? Yeah? Thank you for putting your hands up. Really appreciate that. And sometimes we do this. There's a semi-procrastination there as well. Shall I put my hand up? Shall I not? Shall I agree? Shall I not agree? Shall I accept? Shall I am actually or not? When we tell ourselves the truth, the previous slide said, if you tell yourself and speak the truth, it actually helps your brain get clearer. Because a lot of the time we tend to live in a mask. We live in a mask to show other people that we're successful, that we know what we're doing, or we're the best thing since sliced bread, etc., etc. So if we've been in a position where we've been financially rewarded, the situation comes that we have to act the financially rewarded person. If we've been a parent and just bumbled through being a parent, we have to act as though we know what a parent is. So with the inside and outside. Does that make sense? Has anyone ever been overwhelmed? Thank you for lifting hands straight away. Overwhelmed is when we're not clear on what we're supposed to be doing or how to actually do it. Does that make sense? Simple understanding of overwhelm. By the way, I'm quite technically knowledged, but I don't really talk in big words, so I tend to keep it simple because I'm actually quite thick. Apologies, I can't come to the front because it doesn't seem to work from the distance. Okay, too busy. Too busy. Very specific. When we say I'm busy, that's quite negative anyway. But when we say too, when you add the word TOO in front of it, we are telling the universe that what you are about to give me, I have no capacity to accept. I am too busy. Immediately, we're stopping any positive or any attraction towards what was going to come my way. Does that make sense? Yes or no? Please do nod because it really helps me to see that people are listening or not. Yeah? It's quite noisy in the area and I'm just wondering whether you can hear me. Thank you very much. So, too busy. Did we realize that when we say the word too busy, that we actually possibly stop what's about to come our way? Because we decide in our head, consciously, that we cannot accept any more information. Does that make sense? How's it not completing tasks? Fair? Yeah. Thank you for being honest. By the way, the more honest we are, the better results we get. Because when we kind of become semi-dishonest with ourselves, we live in our mask. Does that make sense? So we start to become somebody else instead of ourselves. The people that I meet are pretty okay at being okay at their mask, but they're absolutely atrocious at being themselves. But the moment we start to think about how we are as human beings ourselves, we start to become proud of who we are. I didn't say arrogant, I said proud. We start to become firmer. We start to assume that we can make good decisions. Yeah? Ran out of time? That's not the same as not finishing tasks. Not tends to be a choice. I get up and I walk away. But actually running out of time is maybe I didn't do it quick enough. So my mind may have been wondering. Yeah? Okay. So I'm going to give you a little bit of statistics if it's okay. I'm going to talk about the list of the highest distractions we have. And at the top there is email. This is actually their own internal business polls. The top distraction is email. We're sitting there walking, working, focusing, and then all of a sudden, ping, an email comes through. And all of a sudden, that email is the one that's going to have the £1 million order on it, isn't it? So we stop what we're doing, and we start to focus on this email. Even if the email was a spam email, it's already done the damage, hasn't it? We've stopped what we were going to do. So the process, I'm going to talk about the science behind this in a minute, which is backed by MIT, the Royal School of Psychology in London, etc. The second most is phone calls. Anybody agree? Yeah? So you're in the middle of doing something, you're writing the stuff down, you're in the middle of an Excel, somebody gives you a call, and you decide, that's the call I need to answer. Right now. So there's an obvious energy of missing out on something, yeah? FOMO. By the way, I was taught that by my 10-year-old. I did not understand what FOMO was. I was saying, is that dangerous? He said, no, it's the fear of missing out, Dad. I went, okay. And what about WhatsApps? Texts? Yeah, it's a pandemic, I'm telling you. Can you imagine watching the cat going round and round and round and round? This is a gross generalization, of course. But we send so many distracting videos to our best of kin, them as well. I'm in a cycle, and I'm thinking, I tell you what, I really like you. I'm going to send you the same one, so it screws your head up as well, and it ruins the rest of the day. Did you know we actually watched the important video of a cat going out, and I'm sure there is some thrills in that as well. But we watched this movie in accordance with Facebook statistics 3.5 times. Just to see it go out, and still not enough. Watch it again, and possibly again and again, and then we decided we covered every single thing that's in it, and we send it to somebody else. I said, Leroy, you get it. Now I'm going to move you can pass it to somebody else as well. Right? Once upon a time, we had news updates, which were very powerful. That's because we chose to pick up a newspaper, a physical item, and we indulged in information based on our terms in a physical way. Is that fair? But all of a sudden now, we have just auto-clicked news updates. So as you're sitting there in the depths of an Excel, or the mid of writing your creative information, or just about to pick up the phone to make the top sale, all of a sudden, we get a ping from BBC saying something else has just happened. So all of a sudden, we stop everything we're doing right now. But this is all relevant. I'll share this in a moment, the part of procrastination. Because the first thing to solving procrastination is to reduce distractions. And the first thing that happens there is we start to read more information. 99% of the time, the information that we see in the news is doctored and planned. It's not necessarily flavorful or valuable to ourselves. Is that fair? Yeah. And then what we end up doing is filling our brain with it. So we get affected. Anybody read Chomsky's work? Noam Chomsky? Well, basically he says that we are consenting in that influence state. So as we read the information, we have to make a decision on that of do we agree or do we not. But a moment earlier, we were not interested. But Chomsky goes on to say that the moment we read something, listen to something, see something, we have to make a decision up here. And that basically hijacks the capacity for progression. So if I showed you this clicker, you would have to decide, is that a clicker or is it not? Does that make sense? So that little distraction ruins the thought process. Social calls, I don't even need to explain this one, do I? Facebook, ping, oh my God, I've got to watch that Insta straight away. By the way, I don't even do Insta, I don't even understand that one either. But there we are. How's about drop-in office meetings? Is it fair to say that? You're sitting there working, somebody asks something of you. Maybe your door's even closed. But they come out of the way and knock on the door and say, are you free? No, that's why the door's closed. But sometimes in open environments, people have been speaking in a big open plan. Does that make sense as well? Yeah? Multitasking. Who here multitasks? Thank you for being honest. Good. So we'll talk about this in a moment. Lack of motivation. This is basically the sheer will to do the action. This usually happens from non-clarity. Does that make sense? Or simply not wanting to do it. It is absolutely not motivated at all because it does not align with us. So the question is, do we really want to do the action in the first place? Okay? So this is basically, hopefully some of you have at least ticked one of those boxes in your mind that this could be valuable to you in the sense that I do that myself. We're all human and I think majority of us do. Okay, so why do we get distracted in the first place? I'm going to give you a few updates if I can. Again, we have created, as a man of human race, not man, not woman, just human race as a whole, novelty of being distracted. So in the middle of thinking, we see an image, we see something important, we love being distracted. It kicks off dopamine, we feel wanted when somebody says, oh, I really need you. And you could be in the middle of doing something and say, oh yeah, well that feels good. I'll get up and I'll come with you. Does that make sense? Using it as a form of relief from other areas of our life. So we may have had a bad day, or a bad night, or a bad week. So instead of doing the things we're supposed to be doing, we spend most of our time thinking about what we should not be wanting to do. So we do something else. Does Does that make sense? We use it as an example. Escapism from daily issues. There could be your boss, you as the boss, whichever it is. You're functioning with other people, so you push yourself to actually resolve other people's problems away. Because we want to be wanted. This is a human fundamental. We want to be wanted. So if somebody says, I really need yourself, can you give me a hand? You can answer yes or no, but the will would want to say, yeah, I'll give you a hand. Self-request. Ourselves like to be wanted. Makes sense. And also, we're frightened of the unknown. Things that we don't know, we don't want to fail at. Yeah, so we don't start. So we start. I know the gentleman who sold his business. A lot of people here have not. So they're probably frightened of it, so they won't even try to sell the business. Does that make sense? And also the lack of clarity. Yeah, they're not clear how to do these things. I have to apologize as they're not functioning just yet. And again, the fear of failure. I'm going to move quickly to understand where I'm going. How often do you think you get distracted? Sorry? Few times every minute. So 30 seconds or so? Or 20 seconds? Anybody else on that? How often do you think we get distracted? Sorry? How often do you think we get distracted? Naturally, just sitting there. Once a minute? From this. Once every hour? Any other further? Sorry?
If you're focused, then you might be distracted. If you're not focused,
I like the answer. If you're focused, you don't get it. And if you're not so focused, then you get distracted. So how often do you think? Sorry?
if you're not focused every few minutes,
Unfocused a few years. Is it fair? Anybody else? Don't get distracted at all. Good. Nice to tell the truth, isn't it? One blue moon. Okay. In accordance with Harvard, MIT, and the schools of thought, UK, numerous studies on distraction processes. Would you believe that we actually get every single 3 minutes in a cycle? You might be sitting in this room, but if you do not want to be in this room, you'll be thinking about what's happening over there. Young lady over there, etc., etc. Does that make sense? Every single 3 minutes approximately. This is an average. Some people manage it a lot sooner. But it still is a distraction. Okay? Maybe quiet. You get a distraction. You tend not to be focused on anything when you're tired. Is that fair? Okay. Every time we get distracted, it takes us 15 minutes to get back into focus. Sometimes 23. You disagree? What is that? Oh my God. It's oh my God. How do we get any work done whatsoever? If you get distracted, it takes approximately 15 minutes to get back to exactly where you were. If you don't agree, my suggestion would be start an Excel and get distracted and then see how long it takes you to work out exactly where you were on that chart, in that algorithm, when you're writing a sum. Does that make sense? They've actually checked by BMI assessments, brain mass indexing, and they've actually realized that the person can't actually, because the brain does a lot of this when it's distracted, it worked out that when it goes completely steady again, they're back into focus. The average is 15 minutes. And in some schools, it goes up to 23 minutes. I think that's quite painful, don't you think? Has anybody ever been in a situation where they've started a job and sit through, and they thought it's going to take them an hour, and they've done it in 15 minutes? Anybody been there? Yes? No? Yeah? A few? Good. Now, if I said to you, has anybody been in a situation where they started a action and it's taken them 3 hours instead of an hour? Anybody been there? Would you like to know what's actually happening in your brain? Yeah? You start something, and some days you can't work out how it's worked, and other days you can't work out why it's just not worked. As much as you're trying, it's just not getting there. This is when we call it the infinite loop. We start a project at 3 minutes. Can you imagine at 3 minutes we get distracted? So we start to refocus our brain on our 15-minute journey. But what happens if you get distracted in that 15-minute loop? Again, when you're trying to refocus. And what happens when you start to refocus again? It loops again with another 15 minutes and another 3-minute focus. This is a vortex. It continuously goes when we don't want to do some actions. We constantly fill our brain up with other stuff that we should be doing. Is that fair? Welcome. Now, every single day, this happens to our brain. Who believes that they're losing a lot of time to this? Anybody? Because I'm telling you now, we are all subject to this. Sometimes we drift. Even myself who's writing this stuff, sometimes we drift. So would it be good to have some kind of solution for this? To actually take away a simple 7-step process. I have spoken on the TED platform of this. If you don't get it here, please do watch it again. Just Google my name or go on to SukhiWahiwala.com. The TED platform video is there. It's free. It's 20 minutes. And if you don't want my story, just skip it forward 10 minutes and listen to the 7 steps. It's on there perfectly okay for yourself. The candy floss effect is when we start a small job, welcome, and it ends up becoming a massive time-consuming action. So we start with a small bit of sugar, you pop it into a machine, and it fluffs it up, and you get massive amounts of candy floss. This is what happens to our brain regularly. Now, if we are unaware of this, we'll just carry on doing it. And then we start to think, how is it that the billionaire gets so much done and we don't? Or we get so much done and he doesn't, or she doesn't. So there's some theories and there's some strategies. Let's keep walking to the front. I do apologize because this doesn't seem to be working. So I'm going to ask you a little question. If I gave you a sheet here, could anybody here, at least, if I gave you 5 seconds to look at the screen, could you pick or select at least one word from that screen? Is that okay? Because what I'm about to tell you is what is actually, well, I won't give you the answer just yet, but have a look. I'll give you 5 seconds to click and select. Pick one word. So I'll go to the front because it's easier. So now, 4, 3, 2, 1. Has everybody got a word? Would you mind just writing it down if you're the writers? Think it, ink it, sink it. You got a word? One? You managed one at least, yes? Some are bigger, some are smaller, some are harder to see, some are different colors. Of course I fixed it. If we fixed it, we should all come up with the same words. Is that fair? Would you like to know what this possibly could mean? What if I said that this is probably what's holding you back in life currently right now? Whether it's in business, social, or anything. This is what we are constantly focusing on because it's missing in our life. So whatever that word was, would you like to share? Anybody? Control. Self-control. Self-control. So would you agree there's a possibility that self-control could be a challenge? Could be. Could be. Anybody else attracted to another word? Anybody else self-control? What did you have, young lady? Yeah, sorry. Thoughts. You don't look like a thinker, do you? Constantly thinking about something new. Sorry? Can't hear you, sorry. Always. Interesting times. When we get things that are abstract, like always, or life, things change differently. That means basically you're in a juncture in life. You're not actually focusing on anything at the minute. You're trying to refocus yourself. You're trying to rejoice. Some energy back in your life. Does that make sense? So when we get ourselves in a position where we don't get something focused, and we say an open-ended conversation, it's usually because we're completely in a final sort of life change, a juncture in life. Does anybody else want to know their word? Is it agreed or non-agreed? Yeah? You okay with the words? If we get more time, please do come to the stand. I'll even talk this through with you. Remember your word, write it down, and come over there to 490. I'll talk it through with you. I'll help you understand what this word could be for you. It's where your current distraction is, constantly, whether it's thinking, thoughts, whether it's always distracting yourself from doing anything, whether it's self-control, whether it's I want to be the best, control, etc., etc. Okay, I'm not going to walk this through, if it's okay. I'm just going to give you some up-downs of information. Please take a scan across there. There's enough information with me online, all over the world, and please read up if you feel you want to check who I am, what I'm about. I don't believe it's a part of my keynote, so just there for validation. On consistent awards, I think I'm 19 at the moment, with blessings, and apologies if I'm using the word God and it doesn't resonate with you, but just change the word into the universe, which I think is the same anyway. Okay. I do believe that when you have achieved something, whether it's financial or intention or influence with people, that you should deliver some kind of change back. So I do all this kind of stuff pro bono. Most of my courses are free. Most of our courses and events are free as well. If you look over here, it's free. So if you go in, become a member, it's free. There's about 1,000 hours of information, it's all free. Watch as many videos and information as you like, self-train, it's free. Okay, so this is actually a process that I wrote some time ago called the DFT process thinking. Now, it's 7 steps, but for today, due to time schedules, I can only manage the DFT thinking, the daily focused time. And this is basically the 7-step process. You can take control of your conscious and unconscious mind so that you can plan both of them together and they can be aligned and you can actually be razor sharp with an action. You know, in that moment, you actually feel as though you want to do something and it just gets done. How could you bring that to command is what we're looking at. Would that be valuable or not? A little bit? Thank you. Thank you for being here as well. Some amazingly coveted speakers there as well, so really lovely. We were talking about multitasking, were we not? So, you've got to be honest and tell me they actually multitask. Tall and proud. Tall and proud, please. Multitaskers. Good. What if I said that the possibility is that multitasking is impossible? What if I said conscious multitasking is impossible? Sorry? I would say that's true as well, wouldn't you? Okay. So at this particular point, we usually get stuff thrown at me, and that's not possible, Sukhi. I multitask every single minute, every single day. So sometimes we say things like, I'm watching my favorite sitcom, or whatever it is, and I'm ironing at the same time. But the reality of life is that that's not true. You actually do one conscious task at a time. At that second, if we split, well, if I'm looking over my own call, I'll tell you, it actually reduces your IQ. This is proven, and I'll explain why. If you multitask regularly, you reduce your own IQ. That's the intellectual capacity of retention, of information, and being able to correlate that to somebody else. That's quite pushy, isn't it? But it's been proven. This is because we actually forget and do not complete the task. So the learning itself is only ever taken when the task is completed. Does that make sense? So when we actually complete a task, we learn that task, which is an element of reflection. Unless you finish the task, you can't reflect upon it. And when you're reflecting is when you truly learn. And when you truly learn is when you can share with somebody else. You're completely bored, aren't you? Is it working? I've got a smile, so we're getting somewhere. That's good. So when we reflect is when we truly learn. And when we learn, we only ever learn when we share it with somebody else. And if you're not reflecting and understanding it, how are you going to help somebody else? How will you learn? This has been proven because the loops, we train our brain to not complete things. And we tell ourselves, it's okay. We start a project, it's okay not to complete it. And so what happens, we get habitually trained to be non-completers. And then we start to worry that why we don't get any results. Because we don't complete things. Is that fair? If you do not agree that multitasking is there, if we slow down 1 second and we split it into 5, so you've got a long 1 second. At the moment when you're ironing or watching the TV, and I'm going to go back into the 80s here, I do apologize because that's my age. When Den or JR got shot on TV, sorry, everyone looked blank at me after that one because not a lot of people have been around the 1980s watching Dallas and EastEnders. Yes, you did. When you see a significant point in that sitcom, at that particular moment, can I ask you, are you really looking at the crease? And at the moment when you're really ironing the crease out, are you really watching the TV? Are you really doing two things at the same time, like speaking on the phone and cooking? And when you're cooking, are you actually really listening to the other person? And when you hear something of significance, do you really focus on what you're cooking? Yes or no? If you slow it right down, you are in different timelines. You are not focusing on two things at the same time. It's like saying, I can read two books identically at exactly the same time. So,
If you chase two rabbits at the same time, you will catch none.
I love it. Absolutely love it. So I don't chase rabbits, but I get it. If you chase two rabbits at the same time, you catch none. When you're in a herd, an animal, when they're actually attacking or catching their prey, they focus on just one and they single it out, even though there may be 1,000 in the herd that they're chasing. If they look for anything that comes near them, they go hungry. Is that fair? Okay. So the question is something happening to our head when we train ourselves not to complete? Well, the reality is, yes, we train and we embed ourselves to jump between tasks. So there's a little space called no man's land, where you take no action, no thought, no nothing. It just sits there, and we call it the twitch. So when you twitch between, should I do that, should I not, should I right, should I go right, left, should I go left, shall I stay, shall I go, shall I stay? That little period of time when you're doing absolutely nothing, if we monitored and added those bits up, we would have a mathematical equation of time that we are actually doing nothing in a void. We spend 30 minutes every single day stuck between A, B, A, B, A, B, doing nothing, committing to none. If you add the mathematics up, that's 180 hours a year. And if you work that out, that's over a week. One whole week. One whole week per year spent doing nothing. And I don't mean by choice, I choose to do nothing. I'm saying absolutely no control, because we're jumping from task to task. Quite interesting, isn't it? Sometimes it hurts. You think, really? The human cannot actually consciously multitask. We know this. We simply think we can. If we now know that we cannot, what would the benefit be for us to actually physically do multitasking, or think we are? Or should we just say, do you know what, let's put that away and let's focus on getting one thing done very well. Does that make sense? And I guarantee you one thing, you will get more done. There'll be less time wasted. And I'm going to give you the method now. I'm going to speed up a little bit, if I may. If anybody wants a copy of this, they're perfectly welcome to it. Come to the stand, give us an email. This sort of stuff goes into the online portal and you can download it as often as you want. Also, we tend to live on willpower as well. I apologize to keep coming to the front because the battery, I think, or whatever it is not functioning just yet. There's a lot of blockage in the area. But we focus on willpower. So we can do it, psych ourselves up and get it done. But what happens is with willpower, it peaks up and then it drops. Has anybody ever felt themselves in a situation where they're high, low, high, low? Thank you. Has anybody in a high, I can do anything moment? Has anybody else been in a, I don't fancy doing anything at the moment? Well, that's all of us. We're all humans, right? We have an emotional roller coaster. There's a reason why, though. And it could be hormonal. It could be. There you go. It could be hormonal, and it could be medical. But actually, really, what happens is we're training our brain to get into this state ourselves. Because when we have a high and a low, it's because we're not aligned with the task. We have no clarity on it, we do not want to get it done, and we don't know what we're doing. So if I go through this in a bit more detail. Experiencing high-low is when the conscious brain and the unconscious brain are not aligned. When what I'm trying to do up here doesn't really align with me as a person. So what if there was a process that you could actually align both? Would that be valuable? Literally be able to sit pen and paper within 15 minutes to be able to get completely clear on what needs to get done. Instead of having a never-ending list of stuff that gets done. I've got to do this, I've got to do this. Coming back to it 3 months later and you've still got stuff sitting there from last year. Does that make sense? Now, if you ever get to know me, you'll know that I actually run a group of companies, and I'm pretty efficient when it comes to stuff, and I'm not ruthless, I'm human, very, very soft-hearted, but I get stuff done. It's because I have an order and a structure. So this is what we've actually worked out. We're 7 generations in business, so I'm trying to share this logic with everybody if I can. And the surprising part of it is there is no upsell at the end. So this is absolutely free information. So this is tried and tested, so we can align ourselves in 7 simple steps. It's called the daily focused time. It's also really known as direct focused thought. So this is when we actually direct our focused thought. So, but how do we get to there? This is hit and miss, isn't it? Sometimes we get stuff done and sometimes we don't get stuff done. Is that really what we're trying to achieve? Getting these fits and starts of getting loads of stuff done and then crashing. So what if we did it in a systemized way? Would that be valuable? A few yeses, so I'll share it for you, definitely. Okay, if you miss any of this information, don't get it due to time. By the way, how are we doing for time? Ish. You got to finish it? Okay. So please do watch it if you want, but I'll walk you through it. Is it okay if I jump on the stage this time? Because we're running short on time, so I'm just going to go through it here. The first thing we do is ask ourselves a question. And this is not just a question, this is an inquiry question. What this means is basically you have a double barrel to it, an action and a context. So why is it that I'm holding, or why is it that I'm not achieving? Why is it that I haven't started my business? Why is it that I can't sell my business? Why is it that I'm not such a great salesperson? Why is it that people don't buy from me, etc., etc.? Does that make sense? So you start there, but the second part of it is the why is it people don't buy from me? Why is it I can't make a sale? There's usually 5 sections on this. We use a who question, a why question, a how question, or a what if question. I'm going to run quickly because we are running short on time, yes? So 3 minutes, you basically write down every possible answer you can think of in this procedure. You fill the page up completely with emptying your brain. We call it emptying the bag. We give ourselves a little break, and what we do is we circle 10 of the most important parts, and then we select 5 of those 10, and then we end up with 3 of those 5. Does that make sense? Sorry, apologies, I would have had more time to share it, but I'm out of time. They've got to get the next speaker on. We then, if it's a task list, you do task 1, 2, and 3. But if it's a reason why I'm not doing something, you reduce it to 1. Once that comes through, you resolve that challenge. Once you've done that, you'll feel revealed. You'll be light, and you'll be able to get more actions done. Does anybody else want to know more about this? If you can, we're going to go over to 490. I'm going to be on the stand, and I'm happy to talk about it further if you'd like to turn up there. Yeah? If not, on your desks, on your chairs, you've actually got a leaflet. It's a black and yellow leaflet. Would you mind, if you have your own time, just basically click on that and actually register on there. It's free. There are no email bombarding, by the way. We actually don't email. We think everybody should be responsible for themselves. If they want something, come onto the system, take it. It's free. Has this been semi-valuable? I do apologize about the time schedule. Yes? Thank you very much for staying. Much appreciated.